Natalie Sabanadze is a senior fellow of the Russia and Eurasian Program at Chatham House. Natalie was Georgia's ambassador to Belgium, Luxembourg, and the EU, and head of the Georgian mission to the European Union in May 2013. Prior to assuming her current position, Sabanadze worked as a senior advisor at the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities in The Hague. She held a number of posts within the OSCE HCNM, including the head of Central and Southeast Europe section, and more recently, head of Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia section. Welcome to Silicon Curtain. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help people discover our fantastic guests and speakers. Please do also check out the Ukrainian charities listed in the description of the video. It's important to help keep Ukraine resilient under the full weight of Russia's invasion. And who knows, we may have to add some Georgian charities in there soon as well to help their resilience. Natalie, welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
So what we see erupting is extraordinary sort of turmoil and scenes very reminiscent of Ukraine's Maidan protests from 2014. But what is happening in Georgia, and what is the unique history of Georgia since independence that has led up to this point in time?
Yeah, thank you. So what is happening now, the immediate trigger of these protests is the return of the so-called foreign agents law. You may recall that the first time government tried to push this law through was last year in March of 2023. Similar type of protests erupted. There was a lot of international pressure, domestic pressure from public, and they withdrew it. They changed their mind and said, okay, well, this is highly controversial, so let's drop it. So many of us, myself included, thought that, okay, well, this one is over. At that time, also now, the main problem, of course, was that the way protesters label it, and that is very correct, it is a Russian law. So the Georgian Dream, the ruling party, which is turning into nightmare day by day, has reintroduced this law pretty much 6 months before 24 parliamentary elections. Georgia is also one of those many countries who are going to have parliamentary elections in this year. And they decided that they are stronger, they can do it, they can push it through. Of course, they expected reaction because, you know, the rehearsal of it has already taken place a year ago. But their calculation must have been that they can ride the tide. Now, the reaction could have been a bit stronger than they anticipated because, you know, the popular protest is really huge. I don't recall this kind of mobilization for a very long time in Georgia because it's what Georgians who are out there are defending is their right to live in a European democracy. So they can see that this is not about the law, it's not about transparency, we can discuss the technicalities of it, but the choice is clear. It's either live in Russia-style autocracy, which all of a sudden this party is imposing on them. Well, not quite all of a sudden, but at least for the past 3 years, it's become incrementally obvious. Or live in European-style democracy. And the choice is very clear. Georgians have consistently been very pro-EU, pro-NATO. European Euro-Atlantic integration has been foreign policy priority since re-establishment of independence. And if, you know, Georgians fight pretty much about everything and disagree about everything, but if there was one thing that there was a societal consensus is that Georgia's trajectory was Western. This is where it belonged politically, civilizationally, etc. It was return to the sort of European family. And all the governments, despite the fact that most of them have been ousted through revolutions, all the governments have pursued that trajectory. And so did the Georgian Dream in the beginning. And things started to shift in the last 2 or 3 years. And this law is particularly symbolic it illustrates very well this shift, because this is exactly the type of law that Putin introduced in 2012. And over time in Russia, and we have the experience what happened to Russia with this law, over time it got worse and worse with amendments. It started out targeting organizations who were only involved in like kind of political activities. Then it became applicable to physical persons. Then you didn't even have to declare yourself. Somebody else could have declared yourself as a foreign agent and so on. So basically it became what it was meant to be, which was a tool for repression. This we know. So Georgia is also fighting against this because, in fact, this is exactly the motive of the ruling party to introduce this. Like Putin wanted this law as an insurance policy against color revolutions. And you know just as well as I do that he's obsessed with these colored revolutions, right? He defends the regime stability, and he believed that these are orchestrated from outside with the Western backing, with the independent actors in the society, not just political parties. So he wanted them basically discredited and banished. That's exactly the same logic that is at play here. And there was a speech by the founder and sort of honorary chair of the Georgian Dream Party, billionaire Ivanishvili, who tends to stay behind the scenes. He's known as the one who pulls the strings, but very rarely makes appearances. Well, he did make an appearance, and the speech was extremely revealing. It basically sent shockwaves in Georgia. It was revealing because that's exactly what he said. He said, these people, it was an incredible mix of anti-Western paranoia, nativism, populism. I even wrote somewhere that this could have been written by Dugin, and he seems like somebody who believes in it. So there was this conspiracy that he was promoting, that there is a global war party, which is the same as Collective West, which is trying to instigate these instability, revolutions, wars. They've done it already in Georgia. They're doing it in Ukraine, and the government is protecting the country from this. So you see where it's happening. You see that this falls in the Russian pattern of basically consolidating power, suppressing civil society in order to ensure longevity of the regime. That's basically where we are. Mm-hmm. And these kind of laws are instruments in the hands of increasingly autocratic governments. Georgia at the moment is still a kind of hybrid regime, but I think if it goes through with this law, it is on the way of becoming fully authoritarian. Yeah.
And we see sliding scales, don't we? So we have examples of Hungary moving away from pluralist democratic European values, but utilizing many of the things you've talked about, nativism, nationalism, etc. There's Serbia. And then, of course, have Belarus, which is completely co-opted. Another feature, of course, of these societies, and one which is less well studied, is not just the erosion of institutions and the media, but underneath it, there's also this creeping increase in control or power and influence of oligarchic classes, sort of unseen networks of wealth. And surprise, surprise, usually these things can be traced to Russian networks as well. Is the same kind of process been taking place in Georgia over the last few years?
Yeah, I think you're right to point to this pattern because Hungary has definitely been an inspiration for Georgia, for this government, particularly because Hungary is a member of the EU, so is Serbia is a candidate. So they play this role of, on the one hand, placating the public opinion, which is pro-EU, and saying that, we applied for membership, we want it, we got the status, but at the same time doing everything that goes against the very, very core values of the EU, and making, actually, by doing this, the accession very difficult, the accession process very difficult. So there's a lot of similarities. also ideologically how Hungary has been influencing Orban's this government. Georgian Dream started out as center-left party, and it has gone through incredible political migration to the far right. And the last 2 years, our prime ministers are talking at the CPAC, the famous gathering of ultra-right forces in Budapest, that are basically are part of anti-liberal revolt. And this government has positioned itself there. I think the kind of overall inspiration for all of this ideologically comes from Russia, because this is also an ideological aspect of Russia's hybrid war against everyone else, against the West primarily. And it's very important for Russia to have this kind of countries. I mean, they may not be getting instructions directly from Moscow. I don't know whether Orban gets instructions or even whether Ivanishvili. They don't have to. The impact is something that definitely serves interests of Russia. And the existence of Russia with its legislation, with its model, which is pushing very hard, has enabled the rise of this kind of regimes. So Russia plays a very important factor in undermining Western moral and political influence. And doing that particularly in those countries, and I think that is very effective for them, in those countries that are actually close to the West, that want to be part of the EU or are already inside, because that's very effective. This is the way to basically blow it up from inside. So in some ways, those who adopt this legislation, they're doing service to Russia and promoting their wider sort of foreign political interests. So they're working as instruments, and Georgian government is one of those. But this is something that people see, and the protests, the determination, the civic solidarity that we see is really remarkable. And in that sense, it is reminiscent of Maidan. Maidan was really this incredible courage and self-organization, this kind of the civic spirit, which is rare in many countries that came out of the communist rule. But here we also see a generational change. And I think that's quite interesting to observe, even though like my generation that came of age at the end of the Soviet Union, we saw all these revolutions up and down, basically from the collapse till now. But it's now children of this generation that are protesting, and they were born in free Georgia. And they have no intentions of going back to the USSR, particularly not at the whim of a crazy billionaire. So yeah, it's a Gen Z revolution, as they call it in Georgia.
And is this awareness of the risk of creeping authoritarianism, or dare I say even Russification, not culturally, but of a system, of your political system, is that fairly well understood amongst that generation you described there? Because if we look at Ukraine, the Georgian Legion and Georgian volunteers are the largest segment of people from outside of Ukraine who have come to fight for its independence and freedom. So is this a really strongly and widely held understanding?
Yeah, and I think what we see, the pictures, the numbers of people that are out there really prove that point. In my view, this is something that Georgians wholeheartedly reject, because it is, you know, we can talk about this kind of abstract notions, okay, democracy, human rights, of the people understood that this is the end of free Georgia. However they experience it, whether it's through voting, through change of government, or through being able to do whatever they want, to have a different access to media. And as I said, this is the generation that has been born in and raised in a free country. So I think there is definitely that perception that there is a serious danger there, but also the idea of the European integration that is being endangered. I think that also plays a big role because, you know, people say this is something that we wanted for 100 years. It's not just last 30 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, you know, because already after the collapse of the Russian Empire, Georgia very briefly was independent state, and it perceived and conceived itself as a European country, and that's the kind of a political space that it belonged. So for 100 years, we've been waiting for this opportunity, and it has opened up thanks to the bravery and sacrifice of Ukrainian people, because when I was in Brussels for 8 years, the doors were so shut, it was impossible to find anything. And now it's there, and all of a sudden we have the government that stands there in front of an open door and doesn't want to take a step, and it is very very frustrating.
And one of the reasons I was so keen to have this conversation immediately, because usually, you know, on this channel, look at things a little bit with depth and with a bit of distance, but it seems incredibly important because already the Russian propaganda narratives are already cranking out the story that what's happening in Tbilisi is a CIA plot. It's a
Yes,
color revolution.
that's what
It's,
Ivanishvili thinks too. They're
yeah,
in sync.
they're
Yes.
moving against a democratically elected government. And to an extent, there was an election and it was democratically elected, but it's broken its mandate. And I think you had that with
Mhm.
Yanukovych as well. And
Yeah.
this is a point of contention, I think, which those who are sympathetic to Putin's regime, or even those who are not, who are libertarians and who are very, I would say, ideologically pure. They will say an election is an election and it's sacrosanct and etc. This is an anti-democratic movement. Well, Hitler was also democratically elected, and then there were no more free elections beyond that. So, in your mind, how do we navigate Russian propaganda? How do we even navigate people who are not prepared to accept the idea that an elected government can turn into autocracy? And where's the point at which it loses legitimacy? It's quite a complex question, I think.
Yeah, it's a very complex question, and there's a lot to unpack. So one is, so that I don't forget, one is Russian propaganda, and another is elected governments turning against democracy. So Russian propaganda, exactly. I mean, it's funny to see that the main supporters of the Georgian government supporting statements come from Russia at various levels, and everybody else, all Georgia's partners and friends and the EU and the US, etc., they're all condemning what is going on. And we have to also notice that there was quite a considerable police violence last night for in totally unprovoked against peaceful demonstrators. So that seemed like an almost punishing operation, punitive operation that they wanted to do in order to kind of deter further protests. I think Russian propaganda works against the government, so it's better that they don't engage too much in it and stop supporting quite so actively, because it only shows that this is the regime that is basically in sync both ideologically and politically with Putin's Russia, which is very difficult for a majority of Georgians to accept. Now, there is another very interesting case that you have mentioned, and that is transformation of democracies into autocracies. And normally it doesn't happen quickly, obviously, and very often, instead of having fully blown authoritarian regimes, you have something in betweens, and this is what I call hybrid regimes. And in fact, this is a trend. This is, and Georgia fits the trend. It's not an exception. You mentioned Hungary, you mentioned Serbia. There are many other cases where you actually have democratic institutions and principles and norms being subverted by democratically elected parties, governments. Normally, it is done by their supermajorities. So they manage to get decision-making majority and then basically start passing laws hollowing out democratic institutions. They dismantle independent institutions and call it a reform. They put their loyal people instead of truly independent individuals who could lead independent institutions. As a result, you basically destroy the function of it. They start monopolizing resources. There is a question of corruption. I mean, Georgia is one of those countries that has gone through a very successful anti-corruption campaign, but the corruption at the highest level is clearly growing, and these are the people who want to hold on to it. So you have this rise of hybrid regimes that are done by the hands of the supermajorities. And basically it's a coup. And I think what is happening right now, it is the coup d'etat which is being conducted by the hands of the supermajority, because everything that they're doing undermines constitutional principles of Georgia, not only foreign policy priorities, but whatever is there in the constitution. And it is constitutional obligation to do everything to promote European and Euro-Atlantic integration, for example, like it is in Ukraine. So I think this is a trend. It's happening pretty much everywhere, and we have to watch. And we also have to see what are the enabling factors that allow this to happen. How come that these things are happening? And I think the overall situation, the perception of Western decline, if you like, is also something that contributes to it. And the rise of alternative models such as Russia's and China's. And there you see this kind of leaders who, on the one hand, want to get Western assistance, want to have an access to diplomatic niceties, have a say on the table, but at the same time, basically do whatever they want. So they learned how to dodge the rules. They also learned how to fake or rig elections in much more sophisticated ways. Almost nobody steals elections on the election day. This is done way before. It's done through the distribution of incentives or through pressure. The field is being prepared. So by the time you come to the elections that are supposed to be so important and decisive, the level field is so uneven that you kind of, it loses point. I mean, it still is a competitive, you would say, and that's why you very often have the kind of conclusions that, yeah, the elections were competitive but not fair, because you want many parties to take part. That adds legitimacy, but they have no chance of winning them. So this is the kind of environment where really we are heading as well for the 24 elections.
And let's pick up that theme of corruption, because Bidzina Ivanishvili obviously has huge influence and role within the government. It'd be interesting to understand how you think that happened and how deep that influence is. But like many other oligarchs, he made his money not just with connections to Russia, but he actually made it in Russia in the 90s. And you could not do that within the law. There was no framework of law in Russia at that time, or at any time, in fact, for you to actually make that much money and do it lawfully. You also, in addition to there not being really a legal framework, there was an awful lot of stuff going on, including bribes, contract killings. You had to have your krisha, or your protection from the mafia to start with, and then the siloviki when that consolidated through the 90s. So is it fair to say that anybody who came out of that environment is really, I mean, they know how to play the game, but they're not going to be a kind of rule of law, clean kind of character when it comes to business?
I think it's fair to say. I mean, I don't know him personally, so I will not be able to give you any insights. As Georgia's ambassador, and I worked for this government, and I was Georgia's ambassador while they were still pro-European. I resigned when I realized that things were changing, but I've met him maybe 2 or 3 times. Each time, but particularly yesterday when I heard him, I had the feeling that this man is a very peculiar mind. He's not very sociable. He is definitely prone to kind of conspiracy theories and has a very peculiar way of perceiving the world. And maybe that has been formed by his experience of basically wild west of Russia in the 90s. Clearly, this must have had a formidable impact on him. What is also interesting is that he is not a person who is comfortable with the Western counterparts or with the Western societies. He does not, even though he is a French citizen and I think lives half the time there, he is Soviet and then post-Soviet Russian sort of personality, largely. And I think the fact that he buys into these Dugin-style conspiracies in a way indicative of that. And I had the feeling that he genuinely believes in what he says. It's a different story that people that surround him and basically serve him that are members of the government, they don't. And they do it for other reasons. And that is truly tragic. But okay, and he is someone with huge influence on Georgia. We can say that he's the one who's taking decisions for sure, pretty much all the decisions, particularly now with this composition and with this kind of reiteration of the Georgian dream. But he is a recluse, so normally he stays behind the scenes and very rarely makes this kind of public appearances. So he has this team, which is basically the government. He tells them these instructions, and then they come out and sort of translate it into talking points that can be made comprehensible, perhaps for everybody else. Yesterday, when he came out and did his speech, it was so revealing because it was so honest and so open in many ways. Because this was not. It wasn't hiding. It was very clear what he was talking about, that he basically wanted to ensure that there is no obstacle. We're talking about opposition, not just political, but also societal, to his permanent rule. And this is the best way for Georgia, of course, that was part of it. So, yeah, it's not somebody who believes in probably and shares the same values and ideals, or truly believes in the workings of democracy, that this is the best system. I think perhaps he is someone who looks at Russia and thinks, well, that works too, and it's fine by me.
Is this eternal personal rule unique to him, or is this actually a wider problem within the Georgian system? Because before we hit record, you were describing to me this fascinating idea that Georgia actually has a revolutionary democracy, that the succession mechanism is something that is partially broken, and which each successive regime tries to break a bit more. And
Yes.
with the result that they have to be ejected from office by protests. Essentially, it's succession by street protest. Could you describe what happens and why is this going on in Georgia time after time?
Yeah, it's I don't have an answer why. I think I have an explanation of the process, how it happens, but why we cannot break out of this pattern is it's $1 million question. But the way it always happens, and this is the pattern, because that's why many people who are watching the situation in Georgia, many Georgians say, well, you know what, we've seen this film and we know the ending. You have the government that comes to power with huge mandate, with a really great popular support, great hopes. They start out well with reforms, and then they just overstay the welcome. They cling to power, and they create conditions where change of power basically becomes impossible through elections. And the only thing that is left is for people to come out on the streets and put so much pressure on them that it's a revolutionary situation. So this is not a consolidated democracy, which actually by some of the definitions requires change of power through democratic means at least twice, right? We've never had that. It always goes into this spiral. And part of the problem is that Georgia has not, it's been dominated by strong personalities, the political culture. It has been dominated by strong parties. It is a extremely majoritarian political culture, which is changing right now through the proportional elections. But it was always like one party take it all situation. And then when that party loses its mandate and its support, it finds it very difficult to give up because, again, almost no party survives loss of power in Georgia. So it becomes not just a normal political contestation like in any other democracy, but it becomes an existential issue. Like, if I lose this, I'm going to disappear. And so the level of the stakes, let's say, are very high. So we are always in this pattern and find it very difficult to break out. There was hope that 24 elections, despite Ivanishvili and despite the fact that this regime has basically consolidated power way too much, that there was some hope that things could perhaps change, because for the first time there's going to be proportional elections, and before the majoritarian system, the mixed election always gave incumbent advantage that was basically impossible to beat. So there is a structural change that creates the kind of window of opportunity, and they will be going for the fourth term. So I mean, there is no party that is liked fourth consecutive terms. But with this rate, we may not reach those elections. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And to make that comparison between Ukraine and Georgia, what's the commonality and what's the difference? Because one of the extraordinary things in Ukraine was after Maidan, you had radical decentralization, which is one of the reasons why people are willing to, I think, to fight so much for values which perhaps previously, if you go back 10 years prior to that, people might not have felt such a connection to those values and certainly not willing to lay their lives down for them. And then that comes with having a stake in society, having a sense of responsibility and opportunity. It's very forward looking. And of course, we know that Ukrainians are extremely stubborn. Excuse me. They don't like being told what to do, and they eject rulers who try to coerce them in that way. They place freedom above security, whereas it's simplistically described, as Andrei Khodorkov described this recently, Russians will always place their security above freedom, because in the short term that makes sense, in the long term, because we know that that's not great. And they have an incredibly vibrant civic society. So how far do these comparisons hold when you look at the Georgia situation?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. When I was listening to you, there are some similarities and some differences. If we start with differences, Ukraine, unlike Georgia, has managed to hold more and better elections where you actually had the cases of democratic change of power happening regularly. In our case, it's always extraordinary situation of sorts, so the kind of pattern that I've been describing. Another factor which is also interesting is that Ukraine is also has been suffering from corruption and oligarchic business practices. Unlike in Georgia, corruption has been tamed in Georgia. In Ukraine, you had many oligarchs who were sort of fighting for influence also amongst each other. In Georgia, you have one. And he has no competition from other private sources, let's say that way. The competition comes from public and from civil society, which he's trying to destroy right now. And this is where similarities come in. I think in Georgia, like in Ukraine, thanks to the Western support, precisely, and this is what they're trying to criminalize now. But thanks to the Western support and years of investment, Georgia has developed a very strong civil society. And media, even though media is very polarized and politicized, etc., but there has always been alternative sources of information. So as I mentioned before, it has always felt as a free country, despite not having a perfect democracy. And I think Georgians as well, like Ukrainians, don't like authority very much. And they value freedom over security. And that's interesting what is happening now, because this government with Ivanishvili, he is making a wrong offer to Georgians. He is making a Russian offer to them and saying, I will provide stability, this is what's most important, and security. And you can do your business if you want, and I'm not going to put you to jail or whatever. You're fine, but leave me alone. Leave me the space to basically govern this country as long as I want to. It's a kind of a devil's sort of offer. In many ways, the way Putin before offered to the oligarchs and many Russians, okay, well, I'm in power and I leave you alone to do your business, to make money, to travel, etc. At a smaller scale, but this is what I feel is being offered to Georgians with this constant talk about, preserving peace, defending Georgia from opening the second front, from, stability is the most important, we're defending our sovereignty. You've heard the narrative. I mean, it's the same in many other places. And the reaction is very, very clear. The reaction is what we see in the streets. So it looks like the bargain is not being accepted for now, at least.
And of course, we know in Maidan, it took months of protests. And in fact, it took a huge mobilization of civic networks, providing food, shelter, medical resources, developing techniques to counter disinformation. That's where a lot of this resilience really sort of started to kick off with that generation, with technology, agitation, organization, this kind of stuff. And of course, there is an effort to recover the language against Russification, the Ukrainian language, culture, and identity. Again, how much of this is transferable? And actually, if it does require a huge civic mobilization, does Ukraine have the will, the passion, and let's say the resources, as well as a threshold number of people willing to take part to bring about a new Maidan?
I think what the government is trying to do is to basically sit it out and say, okay, they are going to let the steam out, lose all the protest resources, and it will be done. Basically, I think this is the approach. We see quite remarkable civic mobilization going on right now. So, for example, today people are coming to Tbilisi from the regions, but it takes transport and you need the housing, etc. So there's groups that are being set up who say, okay, we're going to take this many people in our homes, and I'm going to pay for this many people in hotels, etc. So there is this kind of grassroots mobilization taking place with the help of social media, that people are getting self-organized. And in that sense, it does remind me of Maidan. How long it will last, whether Georgians will get tired, or whether the government will use brutal force that would break the spirit, is very difficult to predict. But the way it seems now, I mean, so far, if history is telling us something, Georgians have never accepted too much access of too much abuse of power. They can accept it for a long time. It's been coming and seen, but at some point, these governments make fatal mistake that sort of crosses the threshold, and then the cost they have to pay is very high. It is a dangerous moment because the government doesn't want to back down. The leader, Ivanishvili, is committed. It means that he would have to back down second time, which is even worse than doing it the first time. So it's like they are digging in. And on the other hand, you have this young, very powerful young force in the protesters who are also digging in and saying that we will fight it out until the very end. So It's looking dangerous, and potentially it could escalate.
There's two other questions I want to ask, and I'm not going to ask you where this is going to go because, like Maidan, I think
We know we're not, yeah,
no one
nobody.
knows where it's going to
Yeah.
go. But of course, there is now a huge Russian diaspora population
Hmm.
in Georgia, escaping just the kind of repression which Georgian government seems to intent on introducing. Do Georgians who are protesting potentially see the Russians or the large number of Russians in Georgia as a systemic risk? And might the Russian government use both this turmoil, the threats to the sort of Russian-leaning government, and the presence of large numbers of Russian speakers, even though they're fleeing Russia, might they not use all of these factors as an excuse for a further military intervention? And the thing I forgot to ask is, well, of course, Russia already controls a chunk of Georgian territory following the 2008 incursions.
Yeah, they don't have to come from far away. They're only a few kilometers away from Tbilisi, actually. Yes. I think that's a very good question. First of all, the numbers have dropped considerably compared to perhaps last year. Partly because for those who just left because they wanted to avoid conscription. It's not a very welcoming environment. And I think partly that was also the reason, because, Georgian society is very pro-Ukrainian. But then there are others who were fleeing Russia for more principled reasons. And I think those are still in Georgia. And actually, I have seen pictures that many have joined the protest. And there was even several of them holding posters saying that this is why we left Russia and what you are doing. So there is a bit of solidarity. But presence of large number of Russian citizens is a systemic risk for Georgia, simply because the way Russia has traditionally instrumentalized Russian minorities. And this is something they know how to do very well. So Georgia never had a big Russian minority, and now we have one. It's a kind of a new minority in international law. You have traditional minorities, and you also have new minorities that have been created through migration. And this is what is happening in Georgia, even though the numbers are not clear and they increase and they decrease over time, but it's there. If Russia wanted to, it's of course possible to use it as a pretext. It is possible that, for example, some kind of provocation is staged and there is a Russian citizen who's injured or, God forbid, killed, or something happens in a situation. And then, there is always this option of coming and protecting Russian citizens and propping up the government that is Russia-leaning. I think it is a little bit far-fetched as a scenario now. Russians are busy elsewhere, and I think that's also would be difficult for even Georgian Dream, which our president calls Russian Dream, to do. But it's not something that should be completely excluded. Yes. So I agree with the characterization of it being a systemic problem, because this government chose not to manage it. When the waves of Russians started coming in, there was no filter introduced. So they were allowed to come in and then extend the stay, etc. It has really affected the fabric of the society, relationships. So it was not an easy process. It's now slowly has been stabilizing. Hopefully it won't be used to stage a provocation, but that would fit perfectly the playbook that we all know.
And the last question here, I think, is for those who are on Twitter and many of us who are part of the NAFO digital collective on Twitter. And actually, to join that, you had to make a donation to the Georgian Legion back in 2022. So there's this interesting connection between Georgian volunteers and the efforts to counter digital disinformation, Russian informational disinformation. for those people who are wanting to counter arguments they may hear that what's happening in Georgia is all a CIA plot, what is a compelling reasons that we can give to say that this is an organic process, that this is a process that perhaps needs our sympathy and empathy, rather than seeing it as an illegal process staged by Western security forces?
Well, I mean, to begin with, if you look at some of these Twitter accounts and what people are asking, they are actually asking for more US and the EU attention and saying, look at us and do something. It is entirely homegrown process. It's been sparked. It was not there. It was not going to happen. And it's been sparked by the return of this bill. It was predictable. It was a decision that the government made, fully aware of the reactions and the costs that this would entail. And went ahead with it anyway. And then once the popular response is there and people are angry, people are genuinely angry, then you see the violence, then you see your children being beaten up by police for no reason. That generates, it's like a snowball, and it has that effect, and it's very difficult to stop. CIA has nothing to do with it. I think most Georgians would welcome a little bit more attention and pressure on the government to, if nothing else, protect the protesters.
Well, Natalie, it's a huge privilege speaking to you today about these
Thank
issues,
you.
and I have a feeling that may well be speaking again fairly
Sure.
soon because these events are rapidly sort of changing on the ground. But thanks so much, and I recommend people to follow your writings and follow you on social media for potentially more information and insight.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.